Hello, salutations, what it do? It's Sadot the Gamer back at you with another Marvel's Avengers video. It is finally here. You guys have been asking for it every stream, every video. Where is that Thor build? Trying to get on that Thor build. You've been seeing me wreck everything with it. You saw me do the Super Adaptoid OLT fight in about 20 seconds. It was pretty crazy, but I was saying I'm going to save the build for that MCU Thor skin because it's only right, and Crystal Dynamics finally delivered. So here it is, my highly anticipated ranged Thor build. I'm calling it the Stormbreaker. It is insane, as you guys already know. So I'm going to go into the skills, the gear, and of course I'm going to also show you some gameplay as well as walk you through some moves, because there's a certain way you want to play this build in order to get the most out of it. But before we get into it, make sure you smash that like button. Helps tremendously with the YouTube overlords, and make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. We are on the road to 4K subs. We just hit the 3K sub mark. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. Let's hit 4K subs hopefully by September. That would be absolutely amazing. Now let's jump right into this video. The main skill you're going to be using is in the hammer skills section, which is that tornado throw, and that is of course his ranged power attack. I prefer doing it from the air, as you'll see why later on. There's some tricks you can do when you throw it from there, but other than that, you're not really going to be using any of this stuff because the build is pretty insane on its own. All you got to do is throw the hammer, pop your heroics, and let it fly. For his heroics, this is the pretty much standard way you want to have your Thor set up. Ymir's Wrath, give your teammates a 25% damage boost when Warrior's Fury is active. None of these other skills do anything, so just stick with that one, as well as Hell's Anger, which increases anyone's critical attack damage by 25% and their crit chance by 10%. That is really good because that one affects you as well. The Assault Heroic. Now, I'm using, of course, Son of Elder Gods, the Cryo God Blast, where you create that whirlwind. A bunch of you guys have been asking, how do I do that 3 times? It's because it is an old exploit. They haven't fixed this yet. It allows you to have the benefits of Thunderstorm, which gives you 3 charges of the God Blast while also using Son of the Elder Gods. All you have to do is select this, switch to this, and reload checkpoint. And you got Rolling Thunder. Defeat enemies with God Blast, refunds 5% of Assault Heroic energy. That is amazing. It's essentially going to allow you to have your God Blast charged all the time because the effect is so crazy in terms of how many enemies it targets. You're going to be defeating a lot of enemies, especially with your heroic rating so high. So you're going to be refunding a lot of that heroic assault energy. And you're going to see, you're just going to always have that God Blast up. And on the ultimate side, pretty standard. I got to go with the plasma for the Bifrost. When you have this one selected, it does plasma in a large area, and it pairs perfectly well with the Cryo God Blast, as well as Thor's innate ability to deal shock damage. That is, of course, because of the battery effect. For those that aren't aware, the battery effect, when you combine a warm and cold status, you get a lot more damage. So for example, plasma is a positive status effect and cryo and shock are negative. So if you combine the two and hit your enemy with both and fill up their status meters, then you will do a ton more damage. So definitely want to use that. And for this, you can go either way with these, but I prefer to have Odin's Blessing, which overcharges you as soon as you return from the Bifrost. I usually don't ever need this, recovering willpower out of the Bifrost, so I just rather just be in an overcharged state and do some extra damage for a little bit. Now, on the mastery side, we got, of course, increase all range damage by 15%. Self-explanatory. This is primarily a ranged build. This one, you can go either way. This one increases critical attack damage when air juggling enemies by 15%. This includes when you knock them off their feet into the air with the Mjolnir throw and use R2 to deal extra damage, as I'll show you guys later. You could also go with increase unarmed damage by 15% in case you want to throw your hammer, deal all that shock damage, and punch them in the face at the same time. That's also pretty effective. I enjoy doing that. Either one is fine. Of course, heroic takedown mastery. Takedowns generate a heroic orb. You should have this checked off for every single one of your heroes with no exception. Now here is the important one. So critical throw, you hold and release precisely when the hammer flashes to guarantee the throw inflicts 20% critical attack damage. Now, this is essentially your tornado throw that I showed you earlier. I don't know if this is how it's supposed to work, but when you do this, you are pretty much guaranteed to land a critical attack, not just have increased critical damage. An actual guaranteed crit whenever you throw this, if you time it correctly. So the higher the heroic rating, the better that is, because your heroic rating, part of that is your critical attack damage. And it's absolutely insane. You have to have this checked off. It's what makes this ranged Thor build so crazy. Over here, critical return. This one, you can use these if you want, but I prefer this one. It's much more useful in my opinion. And essentially it increases the chance the hammer inflicts critical attacks on return flight by 35%. So essentially when you throw your hammer and you call it back, it will hit people in its path on the way back. And there's a 35% chance because of this that it'll hit them with a crit when it lands. And this does come up a fair bit, even though I often don't return the hammer in a way that would allow this to trigger. Sometimes I do mix it in. It can be pretty useful to do, as you'll see throughout the combat. So I prefer that one. This tree doesn't matter at all. I actually wish Crystal Dynamics would revamp this because I like the ability to speed burst in the air. Iron Man has a similar ability, but it drains intrinsic energy. I don't like that. I think the character should be able to fly faster without burning intrinsic. So none of these actually matter. I have charged flight because occasionally if you want to land, as you'll see, you'll do an explosion and disperse energy on impact. I have that checked off because these are pretty much useless. On the intrinsic side, dealing damage while Odin Force is active will recover 1.2% willpower per hit. This is very useful. This includes when you're throwing the hammer and using R2 to hit those lightning strikes. All of that counts as an Odin Force attack and will allow you to recover your willpower. This is very, very effective because Thor doesn't have a lot of ways to recover willpower otherwise outside of takedowns like other characters do. So having this is very, very useful. And of course, because that intrinsic energy is very important, we got maximum force increases the maximum amount of Odin Force energy by 15%, and surging force to increase the automatic regeneration speed of intrinsic Odin Force by 12%. This is essentially making sure that we always have plenty of intrinsic energy so that we can keep hitting with our lightning. And of course, lightning field, when overcharged, surrounding enemies will be struck by lightning. Most of these don't matter, but I think this is pretty cool. And we got increased heroic energy regeneration when Odin Force is overcharged by 10%. Just because why not have a little bit of extra heroic recharge, because this is a heroic focus build. And of course, increases all damage by 50% when Odin Force is overcharged. Don't spend a lot of time doing the overcharge thing, but when you're firing off God Blast, if you're overcharged, then if you keep firing off heroics, you'll benefit from the extra damage. So it can be good to have. Now, as for the way that you want to use some of these skills, essentially, when you're throwing your hammer, you're going to see when it fills up, see when the circle fills up. That's when you want to time your throw. When the circle fills up, you want to throw the hammer, and that will give you that crit. And the reason why intrinsic energy is so important is because after you throw it, if you hit R2, you'll be able to call down lightning in the spot where the hammer is. And this will be doing the bulk of your damage when you're not using your heroics. So essentially the rotation is throw the hammer, set off the lightning, And you can time it so that the lightning hits on impact, which does extra damage, as you see here. And when you don't want to wait for the hammer to come back to you, as you see, this is kind of slow. And especially if you throw it really far, instead of waiting for it to come back to you, there's a couple tricks you can do. You can throw it, and then you can hit triangle and dodge, which is circle, at the same time. And when you do that, it significantly increases the speed, as you see. There's an even faster way. If you, as you see, and this can only be done when you're in the air. If you're in the air, you're going to fly forward a little bit, and it instantly comes back to you. So what happens is, because he needs the hammer to fly, if you go forward, he will automatically have the hammer almost instantly come back into his hand. So there's a trick to this. If you lean forward and you aim right when the hammer comes back, you can get the benefits of the instant return without actually flying. So see the difference? If I just go forward, he goes to flying motion. But I can cancel the flying motion and keep throwing by using the aim. See, I can just chain them together really fast. So if you're in a crowd of enemies and you're really trying to get those hammer throws off really fast, that is a very cool trick that you can do. So that's essentially the things you want to keep in mind when you're playing him. Now we'll go to the champion side. See, I've been filling these out. So they haven't updated the champion system yet. Many of the nodes on this tree don't work, but I've been filling out the ones that are effective. These are the ones you want to prioritize in order. So the best ones are heroic charge rate, increases your heroic charge rate by 2.5%. Perk chance, which is essentially increasing the chance that the perks, which are on your gear, increases the chance of those activating by 3%. You want to also, of course, prioritize critical damage. We talked about that earlier. Spend some points on this because you get 5% on each node. And of course, critical attack chance, but you're critting all the time, so not as important on Thor, but every other character it is, but it's still very good. An innate 5% boost. After that, you can put some into stun and status damage and fortification, which increases your armor under the resilience. But the rest of these don't really do anything, so you can save your points. Now onto the gear. All of the gear isn't finished yet. I'm still looking for a range piece, but this is still pretty powerful. Stat wise, I have 208 precision, 318 valor, 116 resolve, 39 intensity, 107 proficiency. And that translates to 333% critical attack damage. Because of all the efficiency and the enchantment system, I've got a 36% perk chance and 28% crit chance. And of course, as I've mentioned, you can get around that with that little trick. And I have pretty decent charge rates on my heroics. I got a 20% heroic charge rate for support and ultimate, and 28% charge rate for my assault. And that's primarily because of the champion system. So gear for the melee slot, I've got the heavyweight protection van braces. I mainly got these for the stats because I wanted some more valor. And as a bonus, it came with some proficiency. I really love the Odin Force Flare, which gives you a 122.5% increase critical attack damage from Odin Force attacks, which is the hammer throw with the lightning that I showed you, your main method of attack. So pretty amazing perk, but primarily with this build, you're looking for valor and precision. The more pieces you have with that combination, the better. Now, this has been the hardest piece to get right. Targeted buff grip right now is what I have as a stand-in. I have okay rolls but I do have a good combination here of precision, valor, and proficiency. And The most important thing here is the targeted buff. 42% chance hitting an enemy with a ranged critical attack grants a damage buff. Damage buffs in this game are insane, and on a ranged character, even crazier, because as I said, because you can crit all the time with your range attacks, you basically will always have a damage buff active, and the damage buff gives you a huge boost. Ideally, I'd like here Thor's exotic storm piece, Grips of the Storm, with targeted buff and Tachyon Surge. And that piece will come with 3 things that I need. The targeted buff, of course, which is OP, plus the Tachyon Surge, which gives you 50% increased damage from all status attacks, and it will give you Cosmic on your range attacks, which allows you to do the battery effect because his range attacks do shock and Cosmic is a positive status. So that would be the perfect piece that would fill this out. Still can't find it yet, but still looking. But I'll show you just how important damage buffs are in a minute. Now, for the chest piece, I got the reactive Jarvis barrier plate. Excellent for defense. I prefer to have some Valor on this as well, but like the combination of precision and resolve, because precision, of course, tied to range, and resolve, of course, you want to have a little bit of defense. I got this for that top perk, reactive Jarvis barrier. 17% chance taking damage activates a Jarvis barrier, and the barrier protects against damage for 20% of max willpower. It is incredibly ugly to look at, but is very, very effective at protecting your health. I highly recommend getting this piece on as many of your characters as possible. Definitely comes in clutch. As an alternative, you can go for a reactive buff, but if you have the targeted buff, it's pretty redundant, but reactive buff essentially gives you a damage buff whenever you take damage. I prefer on Thor to have the reactive Jarvis barrier, but if you somehow don't have targeted buff, then you can use a reactive buff in the meantime. And here I got this Girdle of the Thunder. This drops from the 14th floor hive. I got a pretty good roll on this. We got Resolve, Precision, and Valor, and some pretty good perks. Increase all damage while overcharged by 20%. Lightning Potentiator increases the amount of shock damage dealt with any attack by 20%. This is crazy on Thor because he does shock damage on pretty much all of his innate attacks thanks to Odin Force. So an extra 20% is nuts and definitely adds up. And we also got increased the amount of overcharged energy gain from all attacks by 15%. Not as relevant. I'd ideally swap that out for another perk, but everything else pretty amazing. And like I said, get this from the 14th floor. It is by far the best piece for Thor that can drop from there as far as I'm aware of. So definitely farm that. The rest of these pieces literally drop from anywhere. I would fly around the Snowy Tundra Vault, opening chests, opening DNA chests, gold chests, silver chests. You could do the same thing on Day of Remains. They also can drop from enemies, loot bots. All these are random. This is the one that dropped from the 14th floor. Also, you can speed this up by getting this from the 14th floor as well. Jarvis barriers can drop from anywhere, but if you do the 14th floor hive, you are guaranteed to get either a Jarvis barrier perk, legendary, or an exotic. So if you're trying to get both of these, the fastest way is to run the 14th floor over and over again, and you will eventually get one of them. Over to the minor artifacts, I got the yellow ISO 8, triple Valor, just for the extra Valor, because the more Valor you have, the more your critical attack damage goes up. And because we're critting all the time, you want to have that number as high as possible. And also because Thor's heroics are very powerful, you also want to have that heroic effectiveness up. And I also have this Northern Stone of Endless Bounty. I got it because I wanted a little more intensity, because intensity just is good to have. It increases the rate that you can fill up the status meter and stun enemies. So I like having a little bit of that. And also, of course, Precision and Valor. But you can also go triple Precision or triple Valor. But I like to have a little bit of mix here. And for the major artifact, for Thor, you want to go either Tactagon or Nornstone. I prefer Nornstone because damage buffs are insane. So this one, the top perk, is also already great. 6.8% increased critical attack chance when the damage boost is active. So basically with this, you're pretty much always critting. with this build, and that's just a little bonus. But here's the second one: increased duration of all damage buffs about 4 seconds. So not only are damage buffs crazy, not only are you always getting damage buffs with this build, you're also going to get an extra 4 seconds, which is great. And of course, Tears Offense, the last one, gives you an extra damage buff. So you can actually stack damage buffs. And I can show you just how, right now, just how crazy that is. So we got some enemies up here. I'm going to throw. Boom, got the damage buff. That's the normal damage buff. Look at that. Normal damage buff. My range rating has gone up to 7,949. My heroic rating has gone up to 19,000. Now, watch when I pop the Sacred Nornstone of Lethal Will for that double damage buff. Now, look at that. 9,200 range rating, 25,178 heroic rating. So, yeah, you want to go with the Nornstone of Lethal Will, and you want to have a targeted buff because your damage, and you even see the melee damage goes up as well to 2,300. As you see, damage buffs are completely stupid in this game. You absolutely want to take advantage of it until they nerf it, because they will absolutely carry you. So that's the build. Hope you guys enjoy. I love it. I am a Thor main, and this is insane. This is in my opinion, this is the best way to play Thor. There are builds that are, of course, pure valor. Some are melee. I prefer this build because I have the benefits of range while also having the benefits of the valor build. This is, I think, the best of both worlds and is the ideal way to play Thor right now. So I'm going to leave you with some gameplay, and thank you once again for tuning in. Make sure you like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, if you want to support the channel, you can become a defender. Hit the join button. You can get access to awesome perks, these fire custom emotes. You got Doctor Strange, the Black Panther, and more. Also, you get early access to videos, member exclusive content, weekly gaming sessions with me, as well as access to that private Discord where we share memes. I share early build ideas, as well as links to the PS5 if you're into that sort of thing. I'm Sadot the Gamer, signing out.